Hello, everybody, and everyone in the future who will be watching. Alf, Jonathan, and Electromagnetic. All right, we're going to review the Bhu-Varṣa thing, and we're going to take new questions about Bhagavatam, because we're done with that whole section. So there's one question which was asked in advance. Let's deal with that one first. It's also quite a good introductory question. It's from Chinmoy Bhagavat. Chinmoy asks, about the Bhu-Varṣa section that is going on in Bhagavatam right now. I still did not understand that when you say that in this area, this deity is worshipped. The place area, Loka, is another realm or some direction or what? This is really a silly question, but I just did not know it. It's not really a silly question. It's a pretty good question. So to answer this, what starts in this section of Bhagavatam with chapter 16 is astronomy. And what Shuka does is he describes this cosmic structure called Bhu. So what's Bhu? It's like when you go to the mall and you look at the directory, like the map of the mall, and there's a red arrow pointing somewhere and it says, you are here. The word Bhu means that. It means where you are. You are here. So this thing called Bhu, it means the place where you exist, the place where we exist. It's at the center of a community of things encircling it, like a disk. But what is it? That's really to answer this question, we really have to answer that. What is Bhu? It's where you are, but where are you? So the way that Shuka is describing the world that we live in, it's more than just the earth. What he's describing is the system of earth, as a system of space that's centered on the earth and extends up to where the moon orbits. That's what he's referring to as Bhu, Earth's region. So, for example, even if you say the Earth, just to make this a little bit more clear, if I say Earth, well, where does Earth start? Does it start at the magnetosphere? Does it start at the atmosphere? Which part of the atmosphere? Does it start at the clouds? Or does it start on the ground? Or which part of the ground? The mountains or the Grand Canyon? So it's a little bit of a question mark as to where Earth starts and where it doesn't start. So the way the Purana is treated is that it starts when you get closer to the Earth. Well, that it has a middle, right? That's the important part, was Meru. When you get closer to that thing, Meru, to the middle, then the moon is. Then you're in the Earth's area. So when Bhagavatam is talking about Bhu, in some ways it's talking about what we call Earth, but just remember that it's talking about all the space surrounding Earth up until you get to the moon's orbit. All right? So then what he does in chapter 16 is he defines the geometry of Bhu. So he describes it as having these 9 zones. Latitudes and longitudes, 6 zones of latitude, 2 zones of longitude, and 1 center, 1 inner zone. And, it has a certain relationship to other things, certain shape, certain spin, and all that stuff. Then, when he gets to chapter 17, he says, there's not a solid earth. All this thing that I've described as Bhu is not, it's 17, I think it's text 11 in chapter 17. He makes it explicit that the human experience of Bhu isn't at the full, doesn't take up the full space between the earth and the moon. It takes up a small portion of that space. It takes up 3 point something percent of that space. Proportionally, it takes up the area of Bharata. So a better name for Earth, you can call Earth Bhu, and that's good. But to be more specific about the Earth that we live on, you could call it Bharata, according to the Puranas. So now it's coming to this question about where are these zones and where are these deities? Also, let me mention this point first. It's very astrologically important that Bhu includes the space around the earth, because this is why it includes nakshatras and rashis. The nakshatras and the rashis are part of the world that we live in. They're part of Bhu, because they're from looking from the earth out into space. How does the moon and the sun interact with what you see? That creates the rashis and the nakshatras. The rashis and the nakshatras are both very, very important, and the rashis in this astronomy are particularly important because he took the trouble to define as a part of Bhu the solstices and the equinoxes and the divisions of the zodiac, the 12 divisions with cardinal, fixed, and dual. Right? As part of his description of Bhu. And he said that this Bhu, that he called it a reduplication. The geometry of Bhu is reduplicated as the geometry of Bharata is reduplicated as the geometry of the ecliptic, the bigger Bhu. So, that's what this whole book is all about, which you can get on Amazon.com. It's called It Actually Makes Sense. That explains all that. So what he's talking about with the deities, it really is he's assigning them to ecliptical directions. North, south, east, and west. And that's what we're going to talk about now to review what we learned in this section. So let me see if I answered this question. So is this another realm or some direction or what? It's the cardinal directions on the ecliptic. But try to understand that human beings, just like the way that we might imagine a fly or an insect or a microbe would experience your room, is not the same way that you experience your room. For a microbe to travel from one piece of furniture to the next, it requires like a spaceship. But for me to travel from my couch to my refrigerator, it doesn't take a spaceship. It's easy. Similarly, between humans and higher entities, the way that they experience Bhu is different. So it is human beings who particularly only access the Partha portion of Bhu. But other entities access the bigger parts of Bhu as though they were solid like this. But for us, that area where they are corresponds to, say, the clouds or the upper magnetosphere or the space in between Earth and the moon, or the top or the edge of the moon's orbit. And we measure all that space in terms of zodiacs and nakshatras with cardinal directions. So he's putting the deities there at those locations. And also, if you are confused about where they actually are, as far as I can tell, it's not really an important thing. Okay, because go all the way back to where this whole conversation started, which was in chapter 16, text 1, when Parikshit asked to be taught astronomy. Parikshit wondered, why would you want to learn astronomy? You're going to die in a couple of days. Why astronomy? And his answer was, because if I can appreciate the thing which was created, then I would appreciate the creator. So then Shukra says, okay, I'll teach it to you in that way. I won't just teach it to you as an abstract thing on its own. I'll teach it to you in terms of how it reveals the qualities of Bhagavan, how universe reveals the qualities of God. So he starts off by getting pretty mathematical. Pretty mathematical, and he's dealing with stuff like this, stuff like this, and then after completing that section where he has finished describing what Bhu is and how it relates to Bhagavata, the sun, then he seems to think there's a little bit less spiritual content in this. So the section that we just covered seems to be him remedying the lack of spiritual inspiration in the mechanics of what he taught. So his basis, for example, for putting deities in different places has a lot. It's mostly just poetic. Like if you don't understand exactly why this particular deity is towards this particular direction, then you don't understand the full thing, and you're missing something, but you're not missing a terribly lot. What his real intention in going into this part was to have the dialogues that he has between the Bhakta and the form of Bhagavan in each zone, to give philosophical lessons that are relevant to the particular directions. Okay? So it's not like, if you don't understand the mechanics of this section, then you're going to miss some important astronomical content. In this particular section, he's not giving new astronomical content, except for one exception. He's not giving new astronomical content. He's just using the content that he already gave to make particular philosophical and spiritual points. So now let's review. So again, I'll take Q&As later. So if you have questions about Bhagavatam in general or this particular thing, go ahead and ask them. Let me just finish let's start the review, the specific review. So this is the basic setup of, let's say, Meru in the middle with the Mandaras at the north and south solstices. And then the other two mountains, whose names I've forgotten, which are at the east and west equinoxes. Okay? So this is like the ecliptic on Bhu, centered on Bhu. And so it generates the zodiac of the Rashi. And particularly the zodiac is anchored to these 4 cardinal signs, which is Aries to the east on the eastern equinox, Capricorn to the south on the southern solstice, Libra to the west on the western equinox, and Cancer to the north on the northern solstice. As you know from knowing basic astronomy, the 4 cardinal signs are the 4 cardinal directions, and therefore they have the element that is associated to that cardinal direction. So the eastern element, where the sun rises, has fire. The western zodiac sign, where the sun sets, has air. The southern zodiac sign, which is the ground, has earth. And the upper zodiac sign has the rain, the water. So you have this, the zodiac has this basic elemental disposition to it. The way that the deities are going to fit into this is going to conform to that. Now, the first zone that he describes is the one in the middle, the black one, Ilavrita. This is the one part, this is the first one, so he's coming out of that heavily astronomical section. So that may be part of the reason why this particular section actually does have a lot of astronomical content in it compared to the other ones. But for whatever reason, in this section, he talked a lot about astronomical things. This one is called Ilavrita, which means the inner one. The deity here is Sankarshan. And in this conversation between Bhava and Sankarshan, a lot of important physics is revealed. Like how mass works, and how mass pertains to gravity, and how gravity causes orbits, and what is orbiting what. Here it's clarified, in this particular section, it's clarified that Bhu is orbiting Bhagavata, that the earth is orbiting the sun. Even though Bhu is the center of the system, that's because we stand on Bhu. Just like when you look at the map, when you're in the mall and you look at the directory and you see a red arrow saying you are here, so that's your Bhu. And let's say you're in the East Wing. You're not in the center of the mall, but your perspective is that the things closest to you, the things immediately around you, are the things that are in the East Wing. So your perspective, even though you're not at the center of the mall is still centered on your perspective, subjectively. So even though he describes Bhu as the center of a system, here in this section, he clarifies what he previously alluded to, which is that this is an observational center, but the actual center of gravity is Bhagavata, the sun. Then that's about it for astronomical content. The rest is philosophical content. So he describes next the eastern zones of Bhu, which is fiery, right? So because the sun rises from the east. And so the message here in this section is about the effect of the sunrise. The effect of the sunrise is that a new day starts, so time is counted. So you should be able to notice that time is passing. If you pay attention to the east, you should be able to notice that time is passing. If you pay attention to the east or the west, you should be able to notice this. And but when you notice that things are passing, like starting, then you should pay attention to getting your deeds properly organized. So the east has to do with dharma or karma, or the deeds that you're supposed to do, and the things that you're not supposed to do. And so here you have the horse avatar, Ashvashira, because the sun travels on the horse. It's like a horse, a golden horse in the sky. That's how it's portrayed in the Vedas poetically. Or it's on a golden chariot pulled by a horse, etc., etc. Then the next, actually what he did was he went in the classical direction, the direction that the sun appears to move. But let's just go over thematically to another section that he covered was the west. The west section is called Ketumala. In this area is Kamadeva. So this is where the sun sets. What happens as sun sets is the temperature cools down and the breeze starts to move. And then what you do, you're also noticing that time is passing. But instead of preparing for the day, you prepare for the night. So what do you do at night? You relax and you enjoy your romance. So that's what the West is all about. And the lesson that Lakshmi teaches in this section by her dialogue or monologue to Kama is what is real pleasure? What is real romance? What is real pleasure? Who is a real beloved? each one of these zones had their own live stream, which you can still get from the library that's on the page, the channel page, the Victor Kara's Astrology channel page. Now, let's talk about the north. The immediate northern zone, like the one that's above the equator, up to the tropics, is called Ramyaka. So, in the north and in the south, there's 3 zones. To the east and the west, there's just the east and west, because what happens is you get 12 divisions. So, you get an eastern and a western side to each of the 6. And that's how you get a zodiac. That's how you get a zodiac reduplication as the latitudes and longitudes of Earth. So the northern zone is called Ramyaka, and in this zone, Shuka puts the deity Matsya. Matsya is the fish. Well, this is the water area, right? So he has an aquatic avatar here. And what is the philosophical theme in the discussion or the monologue to the fish? I think it's Manu, some particular Manu. The Manu that the fish rescued is talking to the fish. What is the whole thing all about? It's about the origin of life, the inner thing that is causing the outer thing. Where does vitality come from? Where does life come from? Where does health come from? Then more north than Ramyaka is Hiranmaya. So this would be the zone north of the Tropic of Cancer and up to the northern Arctic Circle. In the big version of Bhu, then Kurma is the deity there that the residents worship. And again, I forget who the Bhakta in that zone is. But the conversation with Kurma is about the relationship between the substance and the form, similar to with Matsya. Also, look at the deity. This is the water area. So Shuka is putting a turtle. In the lower one, he put a fish. Then a turtle. So this is the description, the message or the philosophy that's being discussed in this section is, what's the relationship between the internal thing and the external thing? Same as with the fish. Where does we see health, we see vitality, we see form. Where does it come from? We see animated things. What is the animator? What's the inner thing that gives outer results? That is the nature of water element. It makes one interested in the inner thing. What's below the surface? And then in the northernmost one, which is Kuru, and which holds the peak called Shringavat, you have the boar, Varaha, who dove into the ocean and pulled out dirt, the earth, and set up the dirt to be inhabitable. So this is the fitting deity to put up here in the northernmost, the Arctic zone in the northern region, which, by the way, is the one that would border on the moon's orbit. Because this is the creature who came up out of the water. So you kind of have, on the top you have a land animal that goes into the water. In the middle you have an amphibious animal, and in the bottom you have an aquatic animal. And again, the conversation that happens with Varaha is the same thing. Like, what is the inner animator of things? Everything external that we see, what's the internal cause behind it? So these are the kind of things that one wonders about when one has a lot of water influence in their nativity. Then they become contemplative, they become reflective, they become deep. They reflect on these kind of things. Besides what's obvious, what's underneath. When one has a lot of fire, then they get interested in time. So like, how can I accomplish things that I want to accomplish? They have ambitions that they want to pursue. They have goals that they want to achieve. And they are interested in the right way and the wrong way of doing things because they are aware that if you do it the wrong way, then you're wasting time. In the West, with the air, if you have a lot of air in your nativity, then you get interested in things of beauty, things of pleasure, things which create happiness. Then the remaining section is to the south. So towards the south is where the earth element comes from. So the immediate zone to the south is Hari, and the deity here is Narahari. And the devotee is Prahlad. So what Prahlad talks about in this section is what is really artha. The nature of earth is artha, are things that have worth. Earth, worth. Things that have value, things that have worth. That's what earth element inclines us to. Things that are real, things that are actually valuable, things that are tangible. So Prahlad's whole message here is, yeah, but what is valuable? What is worth anything? What is real? And what should you do with things that are real and valuable and worthwhile? And what's the real purpose of them? The next lower section from that is Kim Purusha. So this is coming closer to the earth that we know. And this name Kim Purusha means almost human. And the avatar here is almost human, basically human, but kind of obviously not. Obviously superior, yet looks like a human. Ram. And it's Hanuman, the monkey that has human qualities, who is the bhakta for Ram. And what Hanuman talks about are the artas, like the gunas of things. What are the qualities of things? Ram had great character. That's what Hanuman talks about, character and quality in an individual. What are the individual qualities and what are they meant for? And who has them? Who really has these qualities? And then finally, at the lowest section, there's that area is called Bharta. So this is the base of Bhu. And the humans live at the base of Bhu in Bharta. The Bhu may be a physical structure to the demigods, but it's not a physical structure to us. So when you pull out a telescope or binoculars, or you've put a satellite up into space, you're not going to bump into rocks and mountains and rivers and find elephants walking around. Because you're human, you don't perceive things in that way. So in this realm of Nara or humans, there's Nara Narayana, the person and the supreme person. And who are they worshipped by? Narada, the giver of humanity. And what does he talk about there? Narada, what does he talk about? It's on the earthy theme. What is really wealth? What kind of things are really wealth? So that's the summary of what we learned and discussed since chapter 17, or at the end of, since middle of 17. So 17, 18, and 19. Middle of odd chapter divisions, really. Kind of arbitrary. The middle of 17, the entire of 18, and the first middle of 19 covered these things. So do you have any questions about any of those topics or any of that stuff. I didn't even check. Yeah, I'm kind of covering up the whole thing. Oh, well. So I don't see any questions here. Let's see if there's any here. Alf says Ashvini. So that's, people would maybe jump on that. Oh, the horse. It shows that Ashvini is in the east. But it's not. It's the golden horse that pulls the chariot. Ashvini is two horses and they're not pulling the sun's chariot. So nobody has questions about Bhagavatam? Pedro asks, does this relate to the houses as well? You have the basics there. The basic thing of moksha. See, instead of elements, okay, the signs in the houses are the same basic things, but the houses are just the echo of the signs. So the houses are just the way the signs pertain to the horizon. So some of the same principles that go into defining what a sign is also go into defining what a house is. But it's relatively small compared to the other principles that are more dominant in defining what a house is. The principles that are the most dominant in defining what a house is how it's related to the horizon. So is it on the horizon? Is it on the eastern horizon or the western horizon? That determines 90% of what the house is all about. How is it below the horizon, above the horizon? Is it underground? Is it to the east of the underground west? That's what really determines the main symbolisms of the houses. But there's also an echo of correlation to directions. So just like signs get the zodiac signs get their content, their symbolic content in three ways. Mainly by the planet that rules them, which is also related to the directions. Secondarily, by the element, which is extremely related to the directions. And tertiarily, by the sun's character in that sign, and as one of three: fixed, steady, cardinal, or equivocating. Which is also related to the directions, right? So really for the signs, it's more or less 100% related to the cardinal directions. That's why when you divorce it from the cardinal directions and make it sidereal, you open a Pandora's box. So just like, you get the water element from the northern direction, the air element from the western direction, etc. The signs have an echo of that. I mean, the houses have an echo of that. So the house, which is on the eastern direction, has a fiery nature to it. And therefore it has interest in dharma and karma. And the signs, two signs trying to that have the same. The two houses trying to that have the same, 5th and 9th. And similarly, the house that's on the western horizon has a similarity to Libra. It's not at all identical to Libra. You can't say something dumb like Libra is like the 7th house. But it has a similarity in that they're both connected to the west. Therefore, they both have air as a part of their character. And similarly, the 10th house, now this one gets confusing whether it's up or down. So the 10th house is about, it's up actually. So it has the earth. But then this is confusing, this up-down thing with northern and southern hemispheres. So with the houses. But even if you botch this or didn't get it right, you're only screwing up like 2% of your understanding of the houses. Really, you just understand that the 10th house is when the sun is the highest in the sky. It's above your head, and then you get all the symbolism of the 10th house. So basically, the similarity between what signs represent and what houses represent is just in the fact that they both are correlated to directions. The signs are correlated to the celestial directions marked by the solstices and equinoxes. The houses are correlated to the earthly directions marked by the horizon. Okay. What other questions we got here? Priya Chaudhary. Hi, one question. We have heard about Dashavatar, that is 10 incarnations. How does that relate to the above 8 avatars? So first of all, Dashavatar is a poem. It's not a shastra. It's a poem. And Jayadev just picked 10 avatars that he likes. So, like, there's just this idea that, well, Vishnu has 10 avatars. No, Jayadev wrote a poem with 10 avatars in it. Vishnu has unlimited avatars of all different kinds of categories. So in the the first book of Bhagavatam, there was a list of 21, some of which are just Avesh avatars, others of which are Leela avatars, others of which are Swayam Bhagavan. So not every avatar is really equal in that sense, equally avatari. And there's not a particular count on them. The reason why he picked 8, he actually picked 9. Don't forget Sankarshan in the middle. The reason why he picked 9 is because he has 9 zones. So he's in the middle of talking about Bhu. And Bhu has 9 zones, and he wants to talk about some philosophical stuff that you can derive from this. So he picks out 9 deities that make sense to the 9 zones. Okay, Priya? Yeah, which ones are from the 10? Which one did Jayadev choose to include? He included Varaha, Kurma, Matsya, Narahari, and Rama. The ones that Jayadev includes are Leela avatars. So what a Leela avatar is an avatar or a descent of Bhagavan whose purpose is Leela, to show what it is like to play. Leela means play. It's the opposite of karma or work. And Leela is actually what people hanker for. People hanker to play. People want to play. People enjoy playing. And Bhagavan wants to show what it's like to play for real. When your whole existence is just play. When you're Bhagavan. Because that shows people that life could be better if you could become a part of this entity's world. So he has many Leela avatars. There are other avatars that have specific tasks, and sometimes they're merged in the same thing. Like Krishna has Leela avatar for his first 16 years. And then he has like a Yuga avatar, where he's doing something specific to the age that needs to be done. Horse's health, life dawn begins in light. Yes. Pedro liked my explanation. People really overdo the association between houses and signs. They really do. But Mercury owns the 3rd house and the 6th house. No, friends, it owns the 3rd sign and the 6th signs, which are not related to the eastern horizon in any permanent way. So the symbolisms of the 3rd house and the 3rd and the 6th house derive the bulk of their symbolism by how they relate to the eastern horizon, whereas the symbolisms of the 3rd sign and the 6th sign derive their symbolism by how they relate to the solstice. Last week we covered Rama and Hanuman. I don't know if it's a question for me or for everybody, but what's your thoughts on the new Rama temple in PM? You think that I pay attention to politics? I don't. Don't even know. Nor do I like all that kind of messy stuff where everybody's wrong. Any other questions? Thank you, Drunken Tarot. Electromagnetic says, so a central point, 4 cardinal directions with 3. I don't know what you're saying. Sounds good, though. All right. I will count down silently, and if we reach the end of the countdown, then we will end the video. Why don't I like politics? Because everybody is bad. And it never goes right. I asked because you said Vedic ceremonies can't be done nowadays and there are no good leaders. See? I mean, whether... I don't even know what is going on, so bear that in mind. I am not an expert in politics. But whether or not you can, like, for example, look at Israel and look at this Ayodhya. It has no spiritual significance whether or not you can put a temple or a mosque or whatever on the place. It's entirely your ego. It's entirely your ego. And so why should I care whether somebody else's ego gets gratified or insulted? I should not care. The only problem is that when they explode their bombs, it's going to impact me. So to that extent, I should care a bit. But what can I really even do? So I don't care about politics. Some people should care about politics. I wish politicians could care about politics instead of their own ego, but it's not for me. Thank you, everybody. So yeah, let's call that a day. Good night.